Mark Levin here. The post-election economy could be a minefield of inflation, massive debt, and currency instability. That's why I count on gold for my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and that's who I turn to for my own investments. Call them now, 800-900-8000, for a free gold investment kit, and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait and see if post-election chaos destroys your savings. Act preemptively. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. This may be the most important 15 minutes I've ever spoken on radio, maybe 20 minutes, who knows. I've been spending 3 days to prepare for this program, and I sat in the chair and I just told Mr. Producer I'm putting all that aside. I've been watching Kamala Harris today, Liz Cheney today. I've been watching the media, Tim Walz today. I do these monologues on Fox. I do multiple monologues every day here on radio. I try and think of different ways to come at the same thing, liberty versus tyranny. But I want to be very clear about what this election's about. And in order to start, I go to my book, American Marxism. And I want to quote briefly Ted McAllister, professor of public policy at Pepperdine University. And he wrote an essay in 2021 titled, Thus Always to Bad Elites. Thus Always to Bad Elites. And what does he mean by that? He said, today we have a very different elite than America did as recently as the 1980s. In terms of their nature, goals, ambitions, style, and ways of exercising power. The deepest fact of our time is that America has a bad elite, a mendacious one, whose skills, values, goals, tastes, and types of knowledge are hostile to our nation's inherited cultures and plural people. The new elite that has emerged the last generation or two has no interest in preserving anything but perhaps their own power. They lack historical knowledge and vision, which they supplant by or exchange for the powers of misinformation, transformation, and change. Intoxication by the power possible with emerging technology is inspired by visions that only a deracinated globalist perspective could make attractive. This elite thinks of creative destruction as applied to our culture. As winners in what they imagine to be a meritocratic struggle, they can see nothing of an inherited world worth preserving for their very success. The peculiar characteristics of their evolving power have given to our new elite the soul of adolescent art applied to a global canvas. They lack any experiential or historical ballast to weigh them down, to slow them in remaking everything according to their desires. For them, streamlining power is key to creation, and the annoying obstacles to their new creations are not really checks to prevent tyranny, but rather limitations, unnecessary friction in the headlong rush for fundamental transformation. Now, for this new elite, this new ruling class, the good of free speech has become invisible because for them, free speech is simply friction, resistance to their goals. The elimination of hate speech is the goal, the unimpeachable good that the openness of free speech prevents. In half a generation, listen to this, in half a generation, the work of centuries is undone and the levers of tyranny put in place. This is an election between those of us who believe in Americanism and the ruling class elite. That's why you see Liz Cheney campaigning with Kamala Harris. That's why you see Barbara Comstock, former congresswoman from McLean, Virginia, in those areas, who was a bomb thrower as a staffer on Capitol Hill, who was very conservative before she went to Congress. She turns into a rhino. Now she's a lobbyist. Now she endorses every Democrat and hates every Republican. Because for her, like Liz Cheney and these other so-called Republicans, it's more about the ruling class. It's more about the establishment. It's more about the elitism. It's more about the power center of Washington, D.C. that they do not want affected. That's why Milley comes out with a book effectively calling Donald Trump a dictator, when Donald Trump, in fact, is the most anti-war president in modern history because he disagrees with Milley. And look what Milley did in Afghanistan, and then he lectures us. This guy Esper worked most of his life on Capitol Hill. He was an acting defense secretary. He's another Republican out there trashing Trump. John Bolton, who begged me and others to be Donald Trump's national security advisor. But Bolton thought he would run the country. Bolton thought he should call the decisions, not Trump. And so Bolton has a hate on, just like the others. They believe in what came before. And I don't mean freedom, liberty, a republic. I mean what came before, the 1990s and the 2000s. When Liz Cheney was at Washington's Crossing in Pennsylvania. Washington's Crossing, that horrible winter before the crossing of the Delaware in the Battle of Trenton. She was there where she said about 100 Republicans. Yes, ruling class establishment Republicans, elitists. Look at who they are. Christie. Look at them. Whitman, the former governor of New Jersey, look at them. They'd be perfectly fine with a Republican who would accept the fundamental transformation of America. They'd be perfectly fine with all of it. But they hate Donald Trump. Why? Because of the way he speaks? No, that has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. We've had a lot of presidents who spoke in different ways. We've had a lot of presidents who had sex with interns. We've had a lot of presidents who were sleazy as hell. Kennedy, Johnson, Franklin Roosevelt, and a hell of a lot more. Yes, we have. What is it that Donald Trump did exactly? What is it? Challenge the election? How dare him challenge the election as if he's a Democrat in 2000? Challenging what took place in Florida as if he's a Democrat in 2004. Challenging that election. As if he's a Democrat in 2016, challenging that election. 2 impeachments, criminal investigations. Multiple indictments, 91 indictments, efforts to put the man in prison and efforts to bankrupt the man. What is it about Donald Trump that these people fear? What they fear is that he represents we the people in our interests, in our desires. That's what they fear. This ruling class elite includes the American media. It includes these Republican reprobates. includes Liz Cheney, Barbara Comstock and their ilk, and Milley and Esper and all the rest of them. You're damn right it does. Then they talk the enemy within. Oh, my God, the enemy within. The enemy within. Really? I want to read you a paragraph, and then I'm going to tell you where it's from. You ready? Ready, America? In 1838, Abraham Lincoln gave a speech to the Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois. The subject was citizenship and the preservation of America's political institutions. The backdrop was the threat posed to those institutions by the evil of slavery. Lincoln warned that the greatest danger to the nation came from within. All the armies of the world could crush us. All the armies of the world could not crush us, he maintained, but we could still die by suicide. That was the first paragraph in an article in The Atlantic. You know who wrote that, Mr. Producer? James Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, who attacks Donald Trump on a regular basis. The enemy within was the title of the article in The Atlantic. The enemy within. Abraham Lincoln didn't use exactly those words, but that's effectively what he said. And he's not the only one, as I've explained here. That's right. That's right. He made that speech as a young man in 1838, Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois. I quote that speech in one of my early books. There are enemies within. Marxist Islamists. There are people who want to fundamentally transform America. There are people who want to attack the independence of the Supreme Court, open borders to fundamentally reshape, quote unquote, as the New York Times said, the electorate. There are people that use the Department of Justice because they want non-citizens to vote. There's a political party that doesn't want voter ID because they want fraud. That's right. A political party that wants to eliminate the Electoral College. So 11 blue states will be in charge of the executive branch, the presidency and the vice presidency. That's the enemy within. That's the enemy within. A party, an ideology that doesn't believe in parental rights, that doesn't believe parents should make the final decision on whether the genitalia of their children are changed or not. The enemy within. You're damn right. The enemy within. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, who lies down with Islamists, Jew haters, who seeks their votes. You're damn right. We do have enemies within. Lincoln was right. Jefferson was right. Reagan was right. And Trump is right. Now, Kamala Harris talks about abortion. She did it today. She views you women out there as suckers. You single-issue voters on abortion as suckers. She says Trump wants a national law to ban abortion. He has said the opposite. She said Trump wants to eliminate women's reproductive rights, whatever that means. He's never said that. There are more abortions today than there were before the Dobbs decision. Kamala Harris does not believe in Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade had a trimester system. I've explained this. And in the third trimester, states were free to regulate and even ban abortion. They voted on a law in May 2022 that would allow abortion on demand right into the birth canal. And she chooses a vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, who literally signs a law that eliminates the requirement that doctors save babies through botched abortions. And several babies died on the table in Minnesota. The media are not going to report this. Go look it up. It's all over the internet, and it's true. They're running on lies. And then they tell you that Donald Trump is a danger. January 6th, she said today, all those police officers who were killed, no police officers were killed. Police officers have been killed by leftists, by rioters, by criminals. Police officers were killed in the riots of 2020, as were other people. They never talk about that. Courthouses came under attack. Police precincts came under attack. The violence was horrific. And they stood by and watched. And in the case of Kamala Harris, she supported a fund so that the most violent rioters would go in the front door and out the back door. That's who she is. And finally, they're talking about sex slavery, something I've been talking about week after week after week in this program and on Fox and on the Blaze. Finally. Because it shows up in a website news organization, the Free Press, which I respect. But they're certainly not the first to talk about this. That open border has resulted in massive sex slavery, horrendous sexualization of little kids. That border is open as a matter of policy. Policy! Because of the incompetent, the outrageous ruling class that is organized, that has raised $1 billion to take on Trump, to destroy Trump, to prosecute Trump, to bankrupt Trump. Because Donald Trump stands with you. He doesn't need any of this. He doesn't need any of it. Liz Cheney needs it. Kamala Harris needs it. They have nothing else. They've done nothing in their lives. They've created nothing in their lives. And they hope to lie their way back into power. And they're counting on enough suckers among us to do it. Enough suckers among. This election is between a corrupt, American-hating ruling class that wants more and more power, that's power-hungry, that will do anything to defeat the one man who's capable of standing up against them. And they are going to smear him, lie about him, character assassinate him, further dehumanize him. Oh, they were so upset of those assassination attempts. Honestly, men and women out there of America, no, they weren't. Crocodile tears for about 14 seconds. Just being honest with you. As they try and character assassinate him right now. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The upcoming election isn't just about choosing leaders. It's about bracing for the economic fallout that could follow. You know, history shows that post-election periods can bring economic turmoil. But this time, with our national debt skyrocketing and global tensions rising, we could be facing unprecedented risks. We could see runaway inflation or even a currency crisis. That's why I encourage people to diversify and look at gold as a financial safety net. Gold has been said to be a reliable wealth shield for thousands of years through some of the worst economic storms. And for my gold investments, I trust Advantage Gold. They're who I buy from exclusively, and I recommend them to anyone serious about helping to protect their wealth. You can call them right now at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. You can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be happy you did. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. They talk about what Donald Trump's going to do to democracy. Wake up, America. Donald Trump didn't do anything to democracy. We've never had a government that so blatantly violates our individual liberties as this one. This government spies on us. This government tries to control our free speech and freedom of association. This government unleashes the criminal justice system against political opponents or people who oppose their view on abortion. This government has taken the justice system and have turned it into the injustice system. It looks something akin to Stalin's Soviet Union. This isn't a joke. This government is spying on the state of Israel and then leaking the information to a friendly Iranian third party. And now they're going to do an investigation to find out how that happened. You're living in tyranny right now. A soft tyranny. You're living in it now. Fundamental transformation. See? I'll be right back. Folks, we may be standing on the precipice of a post-election economic meltdown. Any election can send shockwaves through our financial system, but this time, the stakes could be higher than ever. Reckless spending, mounting debt, misguided policies has set the stage for potential economic disaster. We can see rapid inflation or even attempts to undermine our currency. That's why I've always relied on diversification and gold for protection. It's been said to be a timeless safeguard against economic chaos, and in these uncertain times, it's more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold exclusively. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and they're who I turn to for my own investments. Call 800-900-8000 right now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help protect you from post-election chaos. You might even qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, America's think tank. And you can call him at 877-381-3811.
You need to vote like your liberty depends on it, because it does. You need to vote like your lifestyle, not for your family, depends on it, because it does. You need to vote that your well-being is on the line, because it is. We've never had a government like this, with such contempt for the people, for the rule of law, for your property rights, for the truth. Such contempt for the Bill of Rights. Such contempt for the rule of law when it comes to immigration. Utterly unresponsive to our desires and our needs. We never had a government before that bankrupts the people, that drives up the cost of necessities to survive, to groceries and gasoline, and does it intentionally. That empowers the central government, that clogs the courts with activist judges that will uphold their ideology. We've never seen anything like this. Kamala Harris, she campaigns with the Obamas. She campaigns with Clinton. She campaigns with Hollywood. She campaigns with a fellow big government elitist, Liz Cheney. She has no connection to the people. None. So what do they do? Well, what do fascists do? What do Marxists do? What do autocrats do? They try and destroy their opponent. They try to scare the hell out of the electorate, out of the people. And that's what they're doing. Liz Cheney is a complete sleazeball. Liz Cheney now has endorsed, not just opposed Trump, has endorsed somebody who is to the left of Bernie Sanders. She's endorsed somebody that never voted for a defense budget, never voted to increase even by 2.5%, the salaries of our men and women who serve in the media, in the military. She's voting for somebody who believes in open borders. And what comes from open borders is sex trafficking, slavery. So Harris must support it. She's voting for it. That is Cheney. She must support the Islamists and hate Israel, because that's Kamala Harris. Liz Cheney is pathetic. The whole damn Cheney family is pathetic. The ruling class. And notice George W. Bush sits on his ass. The former Democrat presidents, they're out there en masse. George W. Bush, not a peep. And probably it's a good thing, because he'd wind up on the wrong side, too. Here's Liz Cheney. Here she is. Montage, New York Post from some time ago. Cut 4, go.
You talk to me kind of your thoughts on the on Joe Biden naming Kamala Harris as his running mate.
Her views are so radical that just from a political standpoint, it was a surprising pick to me. So I think in addition to the fact that she would be a terrible vice president policy-wise for the country, it tells us something about Joe Biden. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all. If you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action. And she threatened during the primaries to do the same thing if she's elected, if she were elected here. So I do think the American people are going to take a look at this record and realize she is very much a radical liberal. Every single day, the Democrats tell us what they would do in, as Kamala Harris put it yesterday, quote, a Harris administration with Joe Biden.
They would defund our police, dismantle our freedom, destroy our history, and abandon our founding values. And every day, you see the damage of years of Democrat policies. The president has said Vice President Harris is in charge of the border. Vice President Harris said she was not in charge of the border. Nobody seems to be in charge. She hasn't been there. And we have a humanitarian and national security crisis and health crisis unfolding there. So we're going to hear directly from our members who've been there.
And she's going to vote for all this because she hates Trump more than she loves America. Cut 5, go.
In one fell swoop here, he has put somebody on the ticket whose voting record in the Senate is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So I think that, the American people are going to look at the substance of this. They're going to look at what she stood for in the past. They're going to look at what she said during the primary election. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all. If you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action. And she threatened during the primaries to do the same thing if she's elected.
Don't you despise these frauds like Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney? Don't you have nothing but contempt for them? They're unconscionable. They have no moral center. It's all personal. It's all about power. All these people are creatures of Washington, D.C. They're creatures of the ruling class elite. You and I, we have got to defeat the ruling class elite. All their special interests, like Barbara Comstock now, is a big-time, phony, special interest lobbyist. Going from a bomb thrower staffer. Now look at her. Look at her. Look at the Republicans who do this. Just look at them. No, they don't care about the country. They don't give a damn about the country. Donald Trump is going to ban abortions. Ladies in the suburbs, do you hear? Well, he was president for 4 years. Did he ban abortions? Did he introduce a national bill to ban abortion? Wake the hell up. They're lying to you. That's what they do. That's what they do. The 2025 Project. Who's read the 2025 Project? Why don't you read the Communist Manifesto? That's Kamala Harris's favorite pamphlet. That one. And Liz Cheney, you see, she's going to convince Republicans to vote for Kamala Harris. Really? Did you hear Liz Cheney a few years ago? She's a real head case, utterly unhinged. I said before, these people hate Trump more than they love our country, and Liz Cheney is a prime example of it. Prime example of it. So just tell me, what is it that's so compelling about Kamala Harris that she should be our president? Is she inspiring? Is she a uniter? Has she accomplished anything? What are her plans for the economy other than doling out trillions of dollars more and creating more inflation? What are they exactly? How will she grow the economy? I love it when they say people need to pay their fair share. Excuse me. You out there, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a cop, whether you're a teacher, whether you're an electrician, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a surgeon, whatever you are, you get up every day, you break your ass, you make a living. Who the hell does she think she is? You need to pay your fair share. To whom? For what? To these oligarchs in Washington, D.C. who piss your money away? Who won't even secure the border? Who don't even believe in the cops and the military? Who redistribute what you pay into the government and give it to these left-wing kooks? What do they mean, pay our fair share? We pay more than our fair share. Look at what you pay. Property taxes, state income taxes, federal income taxes, capital gain taxes. Every time you turn around, taxes, taxes, taxes. I'm not even talking about billionaires and millionaires. I'm talking about the average American. It never ends. Pay your fair share. I'm sick of this Marxist claptrap. Freedom. Private property rights. You work hard. You make money. I don't care if you make 20 grand or 20 billion. It's your money. You reinvest it. You create jobs, medical care, pensions. Yes. Let me ask you a question. What does the government give you? What does the federal government give you? As opposed to the people on the dole on welfare. I want to ask you people who break your ass, get up every damn morning, come home when the sun goes down. What the hell is the federal government giving you? And they take and they take and they take. And every year the GAO says, oh, wait a minute. They've lost $250 billion. Okay, no big deal. That's bad enough. Now their economic policies, the ruling class, the elite in Washington, D.C., price of eggs, price of butter, price of basics, price of school supplies, your rent, to buy a home. We're Americans. And we spend more money on government, local, state, and federal damn government than we do on anything else. But you don't pay your fair share. And Kamala Harris wants the Trump tax cuts to go away. And she lies. It's a billionaire's tax cut. She who raises $1 billion. Billionaire's tax cut? Really? 65% of the Trump tax cut went to people who are considered in the middle class. She lets that expire. Your taxes are going through the roof. Through the roof. But don't worry, ladies in the suburbs. Don't worry. I will bet $10 million to Harris, Kamala Harris, right now. She can get her buddy Alex and George Soros to back her up. That Donald Trump would never introduce or support a national law, federal law banning abortion. $10 million right now. Right now. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The upcoming election isn't just about choosing leaders. It's about bracing for the economic fallout that could follow. You know, history shows that post-election periods can bring economic turmoil. But this time, with our national debt skyrocketing and global tensions rising, we could be facing unprecedented risks. We could see runaway inflation or even a currency crisis. That's why I encourage people to diversify and look at gold as a financial safety net. Gold has been said to be a reliable wealth shield for thousands of years through some of the worst economic storms. And for my gold investments, I trust Advantage Gold. They're who I buy from exclusively, and I recommend them to anyone serious about helping to protect their wealth. You can call them right now at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. You can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be happy you did. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Did you hear me make a $10 million bet with Kamala Harris, Mr. Producer? I'll lower it for her. $1 million. Whatever she wants, either one. That, in fact, Donald Trump will not introduce or support or sign a national ban on abortion. What do you say, Kamala? Or is it Kamala? If I get it wrong, apparently I'm a racist. Honestly, I don't even know. I hear both. What do you say? Meanwhile, Liz Cheney obviously backs Tim Walz. Tim Walz is a buddy. He's an imam, Minneapolis. He's a Jew hater. Celebrated October 7th. I guess that's where Liz Cheney stands, because she's voting for him. Yes, she says she's pro-life, but she's not. She's a liar, because Tim Walz is pro-death, having signed a law that repealed the right to life bill on a botched abortion. And hence, babies have in fact died because there are botched abortions. I guess she supports tampons in the boys' bathroom. I guess she supports genital reassignment surgery, I guess the phrase they use, without parental notification. I guess she supported the burning of Minneapolis. She talks about January 6th. When a left-wing Democrat mayor begged Walz to call in the National Guard, and he wouldn't do it. And they attacked the precinct. This is the new Liz Cheney. And all you Republicans out there, of which there are about 7, who are persuaded by Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, Halliburton. I guess you're now, persuaded. Because Liz Cheney is a hate-filled character assassin. And you want to know the real reason why? It has nothing to do with January 6th. It has to do with Donald Trump's foreign policy. Same with Bolton. Same with Esper. Same with Milley. Now, they may claim to be Reaganites, but they're not Reaganites. Reagan destroyed the Soviet Union economically. He didn't go war to the Soviet Union. Trump is more of a Reaganite than any of them. Peace through strength. Trump is not an isolationist. He's done what he's had to do militarily. He built up the United States military. And so Dizzy Lizzy is going to vote for somebody who has hollowed out the military. Just think about these Republicans. Think about them. You don't want to be one of them. You don't want to be anything like them. Trump would be totally erratic on foreign policy, says Dizzy Lizzy. Trump won't uphold the Constitution, says Dizzy Lizzy. Trump, who will weaponize DOJ, will be a dictator, says Dizzy Lizzy. Has she looked in the mirror? Has she looked at her friend Kamala Harris? Or Tim Walz? Or Joe Biden? They're all doing that. Weaponizing DOJ. Notice how they project. Notice how they project. I mean, to have Dizzy Lizzy as a character witness in all these events tells you a lot. She has Usher. She has Liz, whatever the hell her name is. She has Obama, who made an ass out of himself. Clinton, who always makes an ass out of himself. They'll bring Michelle in. But Mr. and Mrs. America, you're missing from her campaign. Mr. and Mrs. America, she doesn't respect you. She wants to control you and lord over you. Donald Trump goes to McDonald's. People say, well, it's staged. Donald Trump always goes to McDonald's. But he goes to the fryer. He doesn't have to do that. Why does he do that? In fact, why does Donald Trump do so much of what he does in quiet with regular Americans? You'll notice his tax proposals aren't about giving away money, $1 million and unpaid loans and unconstitutionally. She just wants to give it to black small businessmen. She's an idiot. She's a lawyer, right? That's been unconstitutional for at least 80 years, but it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to give out money based on race or ethnicity or religion. But don't worry, she'll uphold the Constitution like she does with student loans. What does Donald Trump say? No tax on tips. Then she mimics. What else does he say? No tax on overtime. Then she mimics. What else does he say? No tax on Social Security. Well, then she mimics. In other words, every tax proposal that Donald Trump has is for working Americans, is for we the people. And yet they say he's for billionaires. Nobody has put more on the line and lost more than Donald Trump. Kamala Harris was handed this nomination as if we're in some damn kind of dictatorship or Marxist regime where they hand the country over from one person to the next. She didn't earn it. She says she's running a campaign of joy. Does she sound joyous to you? She sounds angry. Like she's talking to her staff, 92% of which quit when she was vice president. Kamala Harris doesn't want you to know Kamala Harris. Because you won't like her. You won't like her in the least. The question is whether enough of us are smart enough to know when we're being duped by somebody who shouldn't be anywhere near the White House. Just remember, folks, this election is about the ruling class, the self-appointed power brokers and special interests who make a fortune off our taxes, who make a fortune off of redistributing our wealth while claiming they're the ones for the people. It's between them, the enemy of the people, that's right, and we, the people, and Donald Trump. They want to destroy Donald Trump because they're power hungry and they don't want to let go. Well, this is our chance to force their hand. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. I put a $1 million, if she prefers $10 million bet to Kamala Harris right now. And she can get George and Alex Soros to help back her up. I can handle it myself. That Donald Trump, God willing, if elected president, will not propose a national ban on abortion, will not support legislation, will not sign legislation that does that. And so let her put her big mouth where George Soros' money is, as usual. You hear that, media? You hear that, Mediaite? Another crap operation. Everybody hear what I'm saying? 1 million. 10 million I'd prefer, but I don't think she's up to it. Yeah, that's right. Because she's a liar. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been telling you now for some time that this administration is an administration that has deep links to the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran. From Robert Malley and his spy nest, he was the envoy picked by his longtime boyhood friend, Antony Blinken, whose parents are tied to Soros. That's right, Soros has a foundation in Hungary, and Blinken's parents have worked for that foundation. I tell you, it's sick. It's sick. This is what we're voting against, okay? But it's been the Biden-Harris-Blinken-Sullivan regime that have sustained Iran, that have poured billions and billions directly and indirectly to Iran. They want to protect Iran's nuclear program from Israel. They want to protect Iran's oil sites from Israel. And it's this administration that set the Middle East on fire while they talk about the number of people who've died. They lit the match. They're the arsonists. Ceasefire. Yeah, why not? Then 5 years from now, some more Jews will be murdered. What's the problem? That's pretty much the routine, isn't it? Well, now it's come full course here, ladies and gentlemen. Classified documents and information that was shared with the United States regime, as well as, you ready for this? The spying on the state of Israel by our satellites, on their military movements, on their movements of weapons and armaments, of their military practice as they prepare to attack Iran. We've been spying on the state of Israel. We've taken information that Israel shared with us. We put it in documents. It was circulated in our intelligence agencies, and it was leaked to Iranian front group. So Iran has all the information as a result of the Biden-Harris-Blinken-Sullivan regime. There's a rat's nest of Iranian sympathizers at the State Department, at the Defense Department, at the White House. I've been warning about this for God knows how long. Have you ever seen this kind of sabotage of an ally? An ally that's trying to defend itself, trying to destroy the terrorists who want to destroy you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. But don't worry, Kamala Harris wants a promotion. Now, they say we're trying to determine if this was a leak or somebody tapped into our information. That's a lie, in my humble opinion. And if they find out that it wasn't a leak, but somehow they broke into their system, I don't believe it. And what does this do to our credibility with any country of the world? Any country of the world. You see the norms, the traditions that used to exist in this country have been destroyed by Biden and Harris and Blinken and Sullivan. So she wants a promotion. She wants a promotion. She didn't even comment on this today. Not a word. She's too busy with Dizzy Lizzy, trying to tell the women in the suburbs, Donald Trump's going to take your right to abortion away. It's amazing. These people are going to take your liberties away. They're going to take your Bill of Rights away. They're going to destroy the Constitution. They've said so. But don't worry. Your kids will be able to have genital reassignment, but without your knowledge. Your kids will be able to have abortions, but without parental notification. But don't worry. By the way, just as an aside, when people say get the government out of your bedroom, do they really mean that, Mr. Producer? Let's say somebody's being raped in a bedroom. Should the government not be in the bedroom? Let's say that horrible things are going on in a bedroom. Somebody is making drugs to sell at schools, but they're making them in the bedroom. Is the bedroom a no-go zone? I mean, they talk in these shibboleths. They don't even make any sense. They don't even make any sense. But anyway. So they're going to find the person or persons? They ought to start at the White House and the State Department. You know, there was a host on one of our favorite cable shows who liked to say, why won't Netanyahu share information with our government before he acts? I said, is this guy an idiot? Because they leak. They've been leaking to Axios. They've been leaking to Politico. They've been leaking to the Washington Post, the New York Times, among others, CBS, NBC, in order to prevent Netanyahu and Israel from actually prosecuting a war to win a war. They share the information. They leak it to a guy by the name of Barak Ravid. The guy's Israeli. Absolute turncoat on his own people, in my humble opinion. He's the go-to guy. Next thing you know, they'll be giving him a medal at the White House. Thomas Friedman, another reprobate, says he's Jewish. Wow, just like Soros, you know. Just like Bernie Sanders. You wouldn't know it, would you? No, you wouldn't know it. Now, just so you know my plans for the next 2 weeks. My plans for the next 2 weeks are to bring some candidates on this program from across the country. Because this is a federal election as well as state. But these people go to Congress and obviously the White House. They have an effect on every one of you, no matter where you live. So if I have a congressional candidate on this program from Nebraska, from Idaho, wherever they are, say, hey, wait a minute, I'm from New York. That's right. That's right. And if we lose the majority in the House, we're in deep you-know-what. If Donald Trump wins, the first thing they'll do is try and impeach him. Yes, they will. And we've got to win the Senate. And there's a lot of close races. And they have hundreds of millions of dollars more than we do. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And they have the in-kind media. So if a candidate that we've talked to has an interest in communicating with the American people, then we're going to give them that opportunity. I've invited leftists on this program from the beginning of my career. I've invited Raskin. I've invited Schumer. I've invited, what is his name? Sanders. I've invited all of them. None of them come on. None of them. I've invited that jerk governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro. They don't respond. I've invited rhinos left and right. They don't come on. So I give equal time. At least I would. I'd love to. I'd love to debate these fools, but no. No. They're not going to come on. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Gabe Kaminsky is a Washington Examiner investigative reporter, and a very good one. Gabe, how are you, my friend?
Mark, thanks for having me.
You wrote a really thorough, deep-dive piece on George Soros, the FCC, and the acquisition of 220 stations. I've been talking about this on my program, but you really did a very, very deep dive. What did you find?
Yeah, I really appreciate having me on again. What we reported in the Washington Examiner, as you described there, kind of a deep dive into how entities funded by George Soros and connected to George Soros, one of the top Democratic mega donors, recently were approved by the Federal Communications Commission just weeks before the 2024 presidential election to take over 200 radio stations controlled by Odyssey, which is actually the second largest radio broadcaster in the United States. But really an important part, and something we learned as we investigated this, is that Republicans on the Federal Communications Commission, as well as in Congress, are taking significant issue with how the FCC handled this matter. And it's something, we spoke about this, right? We interviewed you for this article, and you raised concerns over the notion that FCC seemingly fast-tracked this deal, in that they allowed entities in which have over 25% foreign ownership to sort of bypass standard procedure and be allowed to purchase radio stations when, again, the FCC, as you've described on this program for a long time now, does not allow typically groups controlled with 25% or more in foreign ownership. And in this case, they still allowed, a Democratic mega donor, the Biden-Harris administration, to take over these radio stations.
Now, isn't it amazing? It is to me anyway. The extent to which the broadcast media, I'm not talking about radio, I'm talking about, cable networks and so forth, pretend this didn't even happen. I mean, your report is the most thorough of any report I've read.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I think I do believe it's really important, and not only because, and to break it down further, I think, so the FCC, they have this rule in which companies in bankruptcy transactions like this, so Odyssey, this broadcaster, went bankrupt. In order for the transaction, so when Soros wants to, his groups want to buy Odyssey, if it's determined that there's over 25% or more foreign ownership, in which they determined the Soros back groups did, that would typically mean that they would have to relinquish that foreign ownership, or they would not be able to make that acquisition. In this case, it's actually kind of wild. Essentially, what happened here is that Odyssey was allowed to issue these things called special warrants, or IOUs, to its foreign stakeholders, which essentially dropped Odyssey temporarily before the deal went through below that 25% foreign threshold. But now after, they're just going to begin to have foreign ownership again. And here's the really important thing, Mark, that I think your listeners should be aware of. Republicans are really chiefly concerned also because they don't even know what foreign interests are linked to this deal. That's something that would be investigated in a national security review that is not taking place right now, but actually after the deal already went through.
Now, these procedures have been in place almost 20 years. I went back and looked. Never been done for anybody else before. It's done right before the election. You've got some significant conservative talk stations in the bundle of stations out of the 220. And I think it was the CEO of Sinclair who said, so what they'll do is they'll sit it out a little while, then in 6 or 12 months or whatever, then they'll start purifying the stations, like he did to Spanish stations in South Florida, including one conservative Cuban station, right? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, that was Reed Rubenstein, former U.S. Deputy Attorney General, connected to America First Legal. But what Mr. Rubenstein had raised concerns about was what you had described there, which is that the sort of concerns that a sort of wealthy billionaire, in this case a Democrat, is purchasing all these radio stations, and that there are right-of-center radio stations. And what Mr. Rubenstein's concerns are based on are other examples in which this billionaire, George Soros, and other billionaires certainly have sort of gotten involved in the media space. I mean, we reported at the Examiner a long time ago, or last year rather, and something I believe I joined this program about was how George Soros funded a group called the Global Disinformation Index, a British group that took steps to blacklist conservative media outlets from advertising dollars. We've also reported on how Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn co-founder and another mega donor, how he's funded efforts to get involved in media. And so Mr. David Smith, the Sinclair Broadcast Group executive chairman, who you mentioned there, he actually was describing to us at the Examiner how he wonders where conservative mega donors are. Why aren't they necessarily getting involved in the media space as much?
I think that's a pretty good question, don't you? I mean, other than Elon Musk, who certainly got involved with Twitter, doesn't seem to be too much of that. And Sinclair is a huge outfit, and I think he raises a very good point, don't you? But at least when it comes to radio.
Well, I think it's an interesting point, and if you look at the media space, and actually, I'd say this: Leonard Leo, co-chairman of the Federalist Society, chairman of an influential conservative PR firm in Washington, D.C. called CRC Advisors, he recently put out a memo to organizations that he helped support, essentially calling on them to weaponize or in his telling, or use conservative ideas in more activist-oriented ways. And actually, Leo, in that letter to his groups, was calling on wealthy conservatives to get more involved in the media space or more involved in the art space, as Scott Walter of Capital Research Center pointed out to us. There's long been a sort of debate on the right about where wealthy people should be placing their money. But I think a concern is that a lot of that money on the right often goes to sort of dormant foundations that, produce policy white papers and sit on large amounts of money, as opposed to sort of maybe trying to enact change through the arts or the media space.
A friend of mine who owns a few newspapers in Tennessee sent me a piece after he read your piece. Your piece has made it, it's been bouncing around all over the country now. And he sent me information about some story that was done that Soros has been buying up all these local newspapers, too. Had you heard about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure which program it is, but I would note that what we've reported and what others have reported is how there's been a operation called Courier News, a Democratic-aligned news network, or purportedly news network, and essentially Courier News is funded by billionaires and mega donors aligned with the left, and what the nonpartisan watchdog Open Secrets had reported actually is that Courier News, it's not really a news network, rather it's just pushing out, talking points aligned with a certain political orientation. But so I am aware of George Soros being involved with that news network, and its parent company is a group called Acronym that also funds these local news. And so I think the local news, sort of angle of this is actually also an interesting one to explore, which is that's something I believe Leo Network might want to get involved in, is that local news across the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great piece. I posted it on all my social sites by Gabe Kaminsky, Washington Examiner investigative reporter. I urge you to read it, and apparently thousands are reading it, and spread the word. Gabe, great job. You're a real reporter, and we appreciate that, my friend. We'll be right back. The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk.
You can call us now at 877-381-3811. And the Liberal contact number is 877-381-3811.
Kamala Harris likes to talk about January 6th. She never talks about 2020. She never talks about what's taken place at our universities and colleges, rarely, where Jews are running for their safety, some for their lives. She sends the senator, the astronaut, from Arizona to meet with the mayor of Dearbornistan, Michigan, who's a Jew hater. Her pastor's a Jew hater. The group CARE, a Hamas front group. A Hamas front group is a big supporter of Kamala Harris's. She says she opposes violence. She also says too many citizens have been killed in Gaza, and she blames the Jewish state of Israel. Even though one of the leaders of Hamas, who's still alive, stated openly that 80% of the deaths involved Hamas terrorists and their family members. She says we need a ceasefire, there's peace, there's enough death. But when it comes to Ukraine and in Russia, she doesn't say we need a ceasefire, there's enough death. She has a hate for Jews. But her husband's Jew. Her husband's a schlub, he's a schmuck. He's a sleazeball. There are Jews and there are Jews, just like there are Catholics and there are Catholics, and there's this and there's that. If her husband were a religious Jew, it's hard to see how those two would have been married. Because of her views. Her views. So when it comes to all the hate and all the violence in the streets that we've seen that look like daily crystal knocks, she didn't bend a finger. Not a thing. She lied about January 6th. Police officers weren't killed on January 6th. But all of a sudden she defends police officers. There's a reason why almost every law enforcement group on the face of the country has endorsed Trump. She doesn't give a damn about police officers. Hell, she doesn't give a damn about you. She's a phony and a fraud. That's what she is. Now, I want to call out a specific group and thank them for the real patriots that they are. Those of you who voted early, you're the real patriots. You're the real patriots. You've done your duty. You've booked your vote. You're using the left-wing system against the left wing. My family members have voted early. I'll soon be having my mail-in ballot as I'm in Virginia, but I'm a resident of Florida, but I can't get down there, and so that's in the works. If your vote does count. I mean, it could come down to a few thousand votes in some of these states. And I especially want to thank the men and women of Western North Carolina and other ravaged areas from these hurricanes. My God, are you patriots. You people are unbelievable. You can barely survive. Your homes have been destroyed. You don't know where your next meal is going to come from, and you're voting in record numbers. And I want you all to think about it, especially those of you who haven't voted yet. I want you to think about that. These people are being given rides on ATMs. In other ways, they're voting. They don't know what's going to happen to them. In their personal lives, businesses destroyed, people missing. And they're voting early. Early. In record numbers. I don't want to hear after this election, God forbid, and I mean it, God forbid if we lose. Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? This stuff, what are we going to do all the time, is very annoying to me, as I've told you over the decades. Now, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? That's what you should be saying. What am I going to do that's a little more than I used to do? What am I going to do? Is it too hard to pick up a damn phone? Is it too hard to lend a hand? Is it too hard to vote early? Or we just like to whine about stuff over Thanksgiving? Some people in this country, just regular citizens, are carrying their load a lot stronger than so many of the rest of us. And it's true. And it's true. They are the examples that we should look to. We got 2 weeks left. There's no more time for talk. Talk doesn't do a damn thing. Talk is cheap. In your state where you still have early voting, vote. Vote now. Well, you know, I don't want to hear you know. You know what? You know what? It's what I know what? I don't know how else to convey this. It's either a laziness or a stubbornness. But neither of which are acceptable when everything's on the line. Everything is on the line. Everything is on the line. Excuses mean nothing to me. Nothing. Let me tell you something. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. I've got 6 books piled up here. 6. Right, Mr. Producer? Including from friends. All of whom have released their books either this week, last week, or the week before. And they want to come on to promote their books. And I said, no. We have 2 weeks left. In other words, I have 10 days left. Effectively. I have to use that time to speak to you and you to me, to talk to you about these issues, things that we need to do, things that we need to say, provide more information so you can share it with your friends, your relatives, your colleagues, your coworkers, so we can get people to vote, or to bring candidates on here who are running in very, very tight races, whether it's the Senate or the House. President Trump will be here. He's asked. I said, absolutely. You let us know when. We've asked J.D. Vance, but we don't get a response from them, do we, Mr. Producer? I don't know what the problem is. You go on CNN, but we're not worried about that anymore. I can't do anything about it. I'm not going to do anything about it. We'll get the big guy himself at his request. But he didn't have to request it. Here's an open door here. And by the way, if Kamala Harris wants to come on, she should come on. That's right. If Kamala Harris wants to come on, she's welcome to come on. But she won't, because she's a coward like all the rest of them. By the way, when Donald Trump was doing the French fries, Mr. Producer, I had an urging for McDonald's French fries, didn't you? I was like, wait a minute. It was like, I want those. I hate to say it, they are my favorite French fries. McDonald's French fries. The Big Mac, I take the cheese off, the pickles off, I put ketchup on it. I love it. I don't know what that sauce is, but it's a killer sauce. I'm just being honest. I don't eat that stuff as much as I used to, but I like it a lot.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to 2 choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Bernie Sanders on CNN yesterday. Fake tapper, cut 8. Go.
What does it say that Kamala Harris is starting this week with only 16 days left, campaigning with Liz Cheney, a very conservative former congresswoman, daughter of Dick Cheney, obviously, but she has not yet held a public campaign event with you, arguably the leader of the progressive movement in the United States?
Well, first thought, what I think it says is that what the vice president understands is that there are millions of people really disgusted with Trump's constant lying, with his...
Yeah, you're a pig. You're a Stalinist pig. You're a hemorrhotic. That is a human hemorrhoid. You're a bleeding inner thigh hemorrhotic. Go ahead.
Attempt to prevent the first peaceful transition of power, his undermining of American democracy.
Hey, jerk. That would be your party in 2000, 2004, and 2016. And then your coup efforts with your 2 impeachments and your criminal investigations. We don't need lectures from you, you schmuck. Go ahead.
And that's what she's talking about.
You didn't answer the question, Putz, did you? You were asked why she's not campaigning with you. You want to know why? You're the kiss of death. That's why. You're the kiss of death, you jerk. The damn fools in Vermont who vote for you, not the ones who listen to this show, of course, but those fools. My God. The hell's wrong with those people, Mr. Producer? More. Cut 9, go.
So I know you know this, but in addition to the Green New Deal and Medicare for all single-payer health care and ending fracking, in addition to those being positions that you hold, Vice President Harris used to be with you on all 3 of them and now is against you on all 3 of them. Is she making a mistake having reversed those positions?
Well, let me say this first, Jake. Pretty good what you're doing here. But why do you bring the schmuck on? Like he represents somebody other than a small percentage of Vermont? Go ahead.
Look, Jake, I think what we're seeing is a coalition of people, more establishment Democrats and progressive Democrats, and progressive independents. I'm no longer...
Hey, jerk, no. What we're seeing is the ruling class moving hardcore left in a massive power grab, because they're power hungry, to bring all these monies into Washington, D.C., under the camouflage of sticking it to the rich. Let me ask you folks something. Sticking it to the rich like Biden and Harris did. The rich seem to be doing pretty damn well. It's most of us, most of you, who don't seem to be doing so damn well. Always sticking it to the rich, but they wind up sticking it to you. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Let's see here. Stick with me. Stick with me. Let's see here. Stick with me. Kamala Harris. This is what you have to look forward to. Kamala Harris publicly agrees with protester accusing Israel of genocide, writes John Levine, who's an excellent reporter at the New York Post. Really? Oh, yes, this was over the weekend. Didn't you hear about this? Vice President Harris publicly agreed with a protester this week who interrupted her to accuse Israel of committing genocide. Cut 13, Mr. Producer, go.
But what about the genocide?
I want the war to end.
What about the genocide?
And I respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah! What about genocide? Billions
She's so bold.
19,000 people dead. 19,000 children are dead. 19,000 children are dead.
Stop right here. Stop right here. I blame the American media for this because they have been spewing effectively that the Jews in Israel, led by Netanyahu, have been slaughtering Palestinians in Gaza, which is a lie. They bent over backwards to try and protect those people, despite the fact that they were involved in building the tunnels and electing Hamas. Now, that aside, we've gone over this. We've gone over it on TV, on radio, on digital, the extent to which the Israeli military tries to avoid as much civilian casualties as possible, but Hamas kills civilians, whether they're Israelis or Palestinians. And as I keep saying, as long as you know, I don't really care if any other hosts, TV, radio know, but you know, that a Hamas leader himself said that 80% of the deaths of Palestinians have been Hamas terrorists or their family members. And that's pretty much in line with what Israel has been saying, too. Pretty much in line with what Israel has been saying, too. So the media in America used the Hamas numbers. In fact, over the weekend, Bernie Sanders used the Hamas numbers, and he wasn't even corrected. And, of course, Harris uses the Hamas numbers because she is more Hamas than she is us. I'm being honest with you. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
So, listen, what he's talking about, it's real. And so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today. But
so it's real. It's real that the Israelis are committing genocide. She publicly agreed with a protester, writes Levin, who interrupted her to accuse Israel of committing genocide. The moment went down during a campaign stop. It was Thursday at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, when a pro-Hamas student began yelling out, you heard, while the Democratic presidential nominee was speaking, "I am so invested in you all in every way," Harris can be heard saying as the interruption began. Yeah, you all. We all know that's how they speak in San Francisco, where she spent much of her career. Someone off camera can be heard whispering, "Shut up," but the outburst continued. "I'm speaking right now," Harris said before launching into her now well-worn response to similar interruptions. "I know what you're speaking of. I want the ceasefire. I want the war to end." Again, she doesn't say that to the Ukrainians or the Russians. "I respect your right to speak, but I'm speaking right now." Oh, and she has so many profound things to say. "But what about the genocide? What about the genocide?" the protester wearing a keffiyeh yelled. The man was then escorted out of the hall while yelling, 19,000 children are dead. That's a lie, by the way. And you won't call it a genocide. In the silence that followed his exit, Harris turned back to the audience. Listen, what he's talking about, it's real. That's not the subject I came to discuss today, but it's real, and I respect his voice. Yeah, that the Jews are committing genocide. Now, some of my Jewish friends who are hearing this program, you're going to vote for her? Are you out of your minds? This guy, Josh Shapiro, I understand why he's unjewing himself. I understand why he's a sellout, because he wants power. And he knows in order to be a Democrat presidential nominee in the future, he's got to kowtow. He's got to kowtow to the Islamists. It's sickening to watch. It's grotesque. But you don't have to. You're a voter. You're not running for anything. The vice president has never previously suggested that Israel's defense war in Gaza amounts to a genocide of the Palestinian people. I'm sure she has in private, though. Kamala Harris just publicly violated the false and vicious accusation that Israel's engaging in genocide, said David Friedman, a dear friend of ours, former U.S. ambassador to Israel. He told the Post. Many, including myself, always suspected that she held this warped, anti-Semitic view of Israel's self-defense against Hamas barbarism. But the cat is now out of the bag, said Friedman, and it is. It's been, but it really is now. Her view is as ignorant as it is malign. To give credence publicly to this disgusting blood libel disqualifies Harris from holding any public office, let alone the presidency. You know, the funny thing is, she says today, we want to get back to a time before 10 years ago when Donald Trump was there saying all these awful things, these horrendous things. She spews a blood libel. Josh Shapiro still defends her because these left-wing Democrats are just sick. They're power hungry. They're sick. Party first. But she spews the hate. Her supporters spew the hate. They use the names. They dehumanize. They're the ones that spew Hitler. They're the ones who do all these things. And, of course, Friedman is exactly right. And what amazes me, you're going to have Democrats who are Jewish are going to be voting with the very people who want their demise. In fact, want their extermination. The behind-closed-doors event at the school's Luber Entrepreneurship Center was closed to journalists, but video of the moment was posted online. Harris's motorcade was also met with pro-Hamas protesters when she arrived on campus. The heckler appears to have been affiliated with the group UW-Milwaukee Popular University for Palestinian Coalition. These are Hamas front groups, which posted a first-person account of the confrontation. Harris's family has also been public about their sympathies. For her stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff, the daughter of the scumbag, that's what he is, Doug Emhoff. Oh, I love the way they talk about misogyny in the black male community. Look at her slob for a husband. He's been accused of that. The Daily Mail wrote about it. The New York Post wrote about it. It's like it's never been reported because the rest of the media, the Praetorian Guard, they don't say anything. But you women in the suburbs, you know, who are going to vote for it, those of you who listen here, I know you're not, but the others, they could care less. They could care less. So let's see. Where was I? So both Harris's stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff, and her niece, Mina Harris, have raised cash for the Palestinian cause. In other words, for the enemy, the terrorists. They don't raise it for the Palestinian cause. What's the Palestinian cause? Who's in charge of that? Where's their Martin Luther King? Where's their Mahatma Gandhi? Where is he? They don't exist. Ella Emhoff's activism has included soliciting funds for the UN's Palestinian Relief Agency. That would be UNRWA. UNRWA, you know, the one that's part of the Hamas terrorism operation. The one that was involved on October 7th. The one that's involved with Hezbollah. Yeah, that UNRWA. Ella Emhoff's activism has included soliciting funds for that agency, which the United States cut funding to overstaff her potential involvement. The incident comes as Harris has faced growing skepticism from Jewish voters, with poll after poll suggesting their support for the Democrat Party is eroding. Yeah, but not enough. Harris's comments seemingly endorsing the position that Israel is committing genocide took place just one day after the country killed Hamas terror leader Yahya Sinwar. You know, the Republican Jewish Committee is running an ad. It's a very, very important ad on TV. And it's a diner, and there's 3 Jewish women who are sitting there. And they're Democrats. And they said, you know, I'm a Democrat. I've never voted for a Republican. And then one of them says, but I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because he'll help protect us. And that's the truth. And that's the truth. Those provisions in the law that are in place through Trump's executive order that allow Jewish students to sue and protect themselves at these universities, Obama didn't put that in there. Biden didn't put that in there. Trump did. You know, the funny thing is, the Donald Trump you saw at the McDonald's, that's the real Donald Trump. I know Donald Trump. My wife knows Donald Trump. We know Donald Trump. That is the real Donald Trump. He's a gentleman. He's classy. He's friendly. He's generous. He's funny. He's charismatic. He's not what they portray. You saw him in North Carolina today. That's the real Donald Trump. You saw him at McDonald's. That's the real Donald Trump. You saw him at the barbershop in the Bronx. That's the real Donald Trump. You saw him at the football game at the Steelers. That's the real Donald Trump. Not the one where they bring these phony indictments and charges. Not the one who they call names. But he doesn't like to be treated this way, so he fights back. And they don't like that. They want him to roll over and play dead. Or maybe not even play dead. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's a real race in the Senate in Ohio, and I'm very much hoping that the Sherrod Brown is finally defeated because the guy's a phony and a fraud. He runs as a moderate, but he's as far out there as Bernie Sanders, and he doesn't represent the people of Ohio. He represents the people of Massachusetts, and we have with us Bernie Moreno, who's putting up a hell of a battle, even though he's being outspent 2 to 3 to 1. Bernie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. We're fighting the fight, and you said it exactly right. This guy, Mark, is out there doing TV commercials that he worked with President Trump, and that he's a moderate. He likes to work with Republicans. Literally the exact opposite. This guy's left of Elizabeth Warren, left of Bernie Sanders. He doesn't even deserve to represent Massachusetts, let alone Ohio.
Isn't it amazing how they lie now? They don't want to run on their records. They smear a guy like you, and then they lie about their own record, and then they spend millions of dollars doing this, right?
Well, they learn from the communists. That's how they do it, because they ran on their actual record and their actual beliefs and their actual policies, much like Kamala Harris. Sherrod Brown would get defeated 80-20 in a state like Ohio. So the only choice they have is to lie. Kamala Harris is taking it to a new art form nationally. Sherrod Brown's has been doing it for 50 years in Ohio.
So how's the race look?
We feel really good about where we are. Polling has us up 1, 2, 3, 4 points. We've got the momentum on our side. But, Mark, what I'm worried about is getting overspent over the last 14 days of this campaign. This guy raises money from California, Massachusetts, New York, and huge numbers. He'll probably raise $15 million this month. He raised $31 last quarter. So if your listeners can go on BernieMoreno.com and throw in a few bucks, we need all the help we can get to make certain that we don't get swamped in the last 2 weeks.
And by the way, you can get that site on my social sites, ladies and gentlemen, BernieMoreno.com. And, if we win Ohio and a few of these other states, we will have this defensive wall no matter what happens. And if Donald Trump's elected president, he'll have a working majority to advance his agenda, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm the 51st seat because our polls close at 7:30. And if we do it right, if your listeners in Ohio go out there and vote early, get their friends to vote early, which is happening right now. In Ohio, we've already had 2 weeks of early voting. Republicans are doing better than Democrats. You heard me right. Republicans are voting in larger numbers in Ohio early than Democrats are. If we do that right, my seat, my race can be called by 8 o'clock Eastern. Let the world take a collective breath knowing that the Republicans will control the Senate.
Bernie Moreno, I've been spending a month here pushing people to vote early, vote early. It's been a mantra here over and over again all over the country. I'm not the only one, but I think it's having an impact because we need to use that system that they created against them and beat them at their own game, right?
Exactly right. And it's working. I mean, obviously, you're a big, loud voice in the conservative movement. That's critically important. So your listeners are paying attention to you, certainly here in Ohio. And, Mark, if you could just indulge me for just a second. To everybody listening, we can't just win by a little bit. The whole world is watching. America has to reject Kamala Harris and Tim Walz resoundingly. It can't be close. This is a free country of liberty, of constitutional principles. The idea that a lunatic, a left extremist, socialist, communist like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz could even get any kind of voting is extremely important for the world to know that we reject it. So everybody listening, go out there and vote. If you don't vote, you're voting for Kamala Harris.
That's right. And you got to vote the whole ticket. We need the presidency, Senate, Congress, and all the rest of it. So we swamp them and surprise them as much as we can. The idea that this guy, Sherrod Brown, has gotten away with lying every election cycle is really astonishing. I guess the media in Ohio, not all, but for the most part, is pretty rough on you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the media in Ohio is personal, close friends with Sherrod and his wife, who, by the way, works for the Ohio media. She's employed by Gannett. Gannett owns the 2 largest newspapers in Ohio, TV stations in Ohio, newspapers all over the state. So she helps frame the articles. They know they have to cover for them. They fact-check me and, of course, do no fact-checking on him. And the fact-checks against me are total lies. I'll give you an example. He voted against Tommy Tuberville's bill that said no federal funding for schools that allow men to compete in women's sports. I mean, that's an easy one. Sherrod Brown voted no. So there's a commercial out there that says Sherrod Brown wants men to play in women's sports. They say that's not true. It wasn't a vote about sports. It was a vote about funding, Mark. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can. They're pathetic. And now he's running ads saying that he convinced Donald Trump to write some bill and voted for it or something. What is that all about?
He's saying that the Interdict Act, which would stop drug cartels in the border, which, of course, President Trump championed, and that it was a bill that passed 88-12 in the Senate, so he's taking credit for it, said he works with Republicans. Look, he said the border wall was stupid, the border wall was racist, voted to impeach President Trump twice, voted against all three of his Supreme Court nominees and most of his judicial nominees. He stabbed President Trump in the back at every turn for 4 years. And with Biden and Harris, voted with him 98% of the time, but 100% of the time when it mattered. On the key issues, he was right there with Kamala Harris every step of the way. The guy is absolutely a partisan hack, and we're exposing him, Mark, in Ohio, and that's how we're going to win.
And he's another one of these Democrats who pretends to support Israel out of one side of his mouth, but votes for limiting arms and penalties and trashes Netanyahu and all the rest. Isn't he one of them?
Oh, he's worse than them. He's actually right up to the edge of being anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. He's been calling for a ceasefire since the moment.
Like Harris.
October 7th. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, if they're up to these people, Sinwar would still be alive. Yep. Hezbollah would be intact. Israel would be in imminent danger beyond what they are right now. Look, my position is very simple with Israel. We're going to have a foreign policy in America that says to Israel, you need to do what you need to do, and we're going to have your back. Take care of business the way you deem necessary. We're not going to micromanage your affairs, and we're going to deal with Iran. And that the rest of it, we're right there. We're going to supply you whatever you need from us. We're going to make happen. Israel is fighting the war that otherwise we would fight. There, according to the terrorists, Israel is the little Satan. We're the big Satan. And thank God for the people of Israel and what they're going through right now.
But just to be clear, Donald Trump has endorsed you. He wants nothing to do with Sherrod Brown. I want everybody to understand that, right?
Oh, he endorsed me back in the primary. He came out and did a rally. He was definitive in my primary. I'm honored to have President Trump's endorsement.
And you're voting for Trump, and Sherrod Brown's voting for Harris and Waltz, isn't he?
Correct, absolutely. He wanted to be her VP in 2019.
Bernie, let me carry you over. I got a few more questions. Bernie Moreno, hopefully the next Senate from Ohio. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Talking with Bernie Moreno, who's running for the Senate, Republican candidate for Senate in Ohio. Remind everybody a little bit of your background, Bernie.
So, Mark, I was born in Colombia, South America. Came here legally with my family when I was a kid. Became a citizen the first opportunity I could when I was 18 years old. I went into the car business by being able to buy a tiny little underperforming car dealership in Cleveland. Turned that into a group of 15 dealerships that sold about 20,000 cars a year. Sold all of those dealerships. Started a technology company that uses blockchain to make hard titles digital. So we sold software to state governments. Sold that business to run for Senate because I didn't want to have any conflicts of interest. And I'm running for one simple reason. We can't continue to elect career politicians who've never run a business, never even worked in a private sector, like my opponent, never had a job once in a private sector, and yet he's the chairman of the banking committee, and we wonder why this country's in trouble. So the business people of this country have got to step up. That's what I'm doing because I love this country. It gave me every opportunity in the world to succeed.
So you've hired people of all backgrounds and races and so forth and so on, and Sherrod Brown likes to talk the talk and so forth and so on, but he's never had to meet a payroll. You've had to make a payroll, and you've debated him, I take it?
No, he refused to debate me, Mark, so we will not. We will be one of the few Senate races that had no debates. We asked for 8 early in the summer. He asked for 0, and we ended up at 0. He can't stand, Mark, in a debate stage and defend his record. It's indefensible.
That's amazing. You know, the Senate, that's all they ever do is debate. And so he doesn't want to debate you? I mean, that is shocking.
He has a record. Well, he has a record where he voted for the Green New Deal. He voted for EV mandates. Of course, we make more internal combustion engines in Ohio than any other state, more than Michigan. He voted to destroy our auto industry. He's lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs while he's been in D.C. The guy's a total abject disaster, voted with Biden and Harris, like I said earlier, almost 100% of the time. Even you couldn't stand on a debate stage and defend that record.
Mm-hmm. Now, how is it looking in the House races? Do you have any idea? I mean, I know you're focused on your own. I'm just curious.
Well, we have three phenomenal potential pickups here in Ohio. We have Derek Marin up in the Toledo area, great candidate. He can get rid of Marcy Kaptur, who's been there for 44 years, way too long. She's terrible. Amelia Sykes, who doesn't even live anywhere near Akron, who's a absolutely useless member of Congress, is running against Kevin Coughlin. That race is super close. And then we have a really phenomenal candidate in the Cincinnati area named Orlando Sanza, young guy, West Point grad. Greg Landsman is a totally useless member of Congress. He's again, one of these anti-Israel guys, big government, liberal. Orlando can beat him. We just need the people in the Cincinnati to step up and help Orlando. He's a great candidate.
Now, you were saying early voting's been pretty good. Are you able in that state to determine who's voting early? Which party?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you see?
We can see. So Republicans are voting a higher clip than Democrats for the first time. I mean, we're way beyond the 2020 numbers of early voting. So Republicans are doing really well. It's halftime, though, and I'm a Browns fan, Mark. We've had lots of times when we're ahead at halftime, and then we didn't win the game. So we got to go out there for the next 2 weeks and vote like this country depends on it, because it does. Go out there and vote. Get your friends to vote. This is no time to be passive. This is the election where being passive and sitting on the sidelines is going to ruin this country. We got to go out there and vote.
It's very important. People need to understand this is the election right now, the next 2 weeks. And early voting in Ohio is still ongoing. And I've said, when you look at the people in western North Carolina, Bernie, who've lost everything, and apparently they're voting in significant numbers, these are great patriots. These are people who want to save the country despite the fact they've lost everything. Some of them have lost family members, and they don't know where their next meal's going to come from. So for the rest of us, it's really not asking too much to vote early, is it?
It's not. It's very quick. It's very easy in Ohio. We require voter ID. It takes 5 minutes. You're in and out of there. Look at what the people before us sacrificed to give us that right to vote. And honor that, and go out there and make it happen. Look, I'm sick and tired of hearing people in America saying that, my vote doesn't matter, it's all rigged. It's not the case. Look, not voting is a vote for socialism and communism, and that's what a vote for Kamala Harris is, and we have to reject it soundly. The world needs to know that America will not go down that road, and they have to be absolutely destroyed at the ballot box, and that's what's going to happen November 5th if we do it the right way.
His name is Bernie Moreno. Be a fantastic senator. My God, 10 steps above Sherrod Brown. Time to retire him after half a century. And Bernie Moreno believes in freedom. He believes in the Constitution. He believes in securing the border, cops, the military. Believes, as the rest of us do, in the Constitution and our system of government. I hope you'll support him. You can go to BernieMoreno.com, Bernie, MORENO.com. If you can help him out, it would be great. That would be a great pickup there, I'm telling you. Bernie, good luck to you, my friend. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for everything that you do.
All right. God bless. My God, our candidates are so much better than theirs, don't you think, Mr. Producer? It's not even a close call. Interest payments top defense spending for the first time in history. Thank you, Kamala Harris. This is from our friends at IssuesInsights.com, one of the great editorial sites. Treasury Department released a report showing the kind of impact Harris is having. She said she wouldn't change anything that Joe Biden did. And then she likes to say, but I'll be my own person with my own experiences. That's what we're afraid of. That's what we're afraid of. The latest monthly Treasury report shows spending and revenues for the full fiscal year 2024, which ended in September. Their government's calendar year ends September 30th. Among the terrible results, the federal deficit topped $1.8 trillion in 2024. That's just 1 year. The third highest in history, eclipsed only by the two COVID-19 panic spending years. That's not for lack of revenues, which were up by nearly $500 billion this year. Spending under Biden-Harris this fiscal year climbed more than a 10% increase in 1 year. And that's on top of all the increases for COVID. But here's the real shocker, the explosive growth of interest payments on the national debt. They hit $882 billion this year. $882 billion. That's a jump of 35% from last year. Hello. That is a society that's dying. And it's $8 billion more than we spent on national defense. So we are now officially, under Harris-Biden, spending more on interest on the debt that has jumped up 35% in 1 year under their reign. We're now spending more on interest on the debt than on all national defense combined. And this marks the first time in American history that interest on debt has exceeded defense spending, and the gap is on track to rapidly widen, with the government spending $200 billion more in interest than in protecting America from the enemies by 2029. My God, America, is this what you want? Why the massive run-up in interest costs? Blame Harris's tie-breaking votes. Tie-breaking votes, something for which she routinely brags. Because of them, it was 50-50 as the head of the Senate. Part of the job of the vice president, she would vote all these tie-breaking votes, and she did more than any vice president in American history. And with her tie-breaking votes, Biden-Harris added trillions in new spending. And you're paying for this through your grocery bills, through your energy and utility bills, through all your bills. You're paying for this. She added trillions in new spending at a time when the economy had already fully recovered from the pandemic. That sparked the huge increase in inflation, which in turn drove up interest rates, which in turn drove up the price of all the basics that you need to put food on the table. More debt and higher interest rates mean a sharp increase in the cost of financing that debt. How do we know Biden and Harris are to blame? Before they took office, the Congressional Budget Office projected net interest payments for the next decade based on the policies of Donald Trump. The CBO said that had Biden not spent us to the poorhouse, interest payments on the national debt this year would have been only $284 billion, not $880 billion. In other words, Harris and her tie-breaking votes are responsible for a 210% increase in interest costs this year alone. Folks, we're going broke. The value of your dollar is going to go down, the money in your wallet, your savings, your pension. This is stagflation, I keep saying. Food prices and other prices keep going up. The value of your money keeps going down. What would Kamala Harris do about this terrible state of affairs if she were elected president? Don't want us to bother to ask her. She already said she wouldn't change a damn thing under Biden. But we do know that she wants to do exactly what she and Biden have already done. Add trillions more dollars of inflationary spending, impose economically ruinous tax hikes on you, pile on still more growth-killing regulations. Harris is about one thing. It's time to turn the page before it's too late. And that's turn the page on her. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I keep digging up information to provide you so you can share it. There's millions of you. If you share it with other people, that means tens of millions of people will be well informed. Over at Hot Air, here's something no one in the media is reporting as Kamala Harris continues to duck and weave like Muhammad Ali in the ring to avoid any questions about her economic plan. The American Business Defense Foundation reports that under the Kamala Harris tax plan, the number of Americans subject to the hated death tax would double or triple. This would happen because Harris has declared she will let the Trump tax cut expire next year if she becomes president. According to the IRS, under the tax reform law, the increase is only temporary. Thus, in 2026, the exemption is due to revert to its pre-2018 level of $5 million. Now, some of you may think that's a lot of money. If you own a farm and your land is worth $5 million or more, let's say your land is worth $13 million. That doesn't mean you make $13 million a year. That means that that's the assessed value of the land, if they put a development on it or something. So this will put small farmers out of business. It'll put small ranchers out of business. It'll put small business out of business. Because you won't be able to pass it along to your family. And so the government steals it. Kamala wants this to happen. She wants to soak the millionaires and billionaires. But under her plan, thousands more families who are not millionaires. It's not like they have millions of dollars just because the value of the property is worth whatever it's worth, or just because your business is worth what it's worth doesn't mean you make that much every year. She wants to soak millionaires and billionaires, but under her plan, thousands more families will be clobbered by this tax when a parent dies. So the government will steal the property. This brings new meaning to the idea of the Grim Reaper. This is her looking out for the little guy. We aren't talking about the very rich people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and George and Alice Soros. We're already subject to the unfair death tax. Now many farmers, ranchers, family-owned businesses will have to be sold after a funeral just to pay the taxes. These are mostly owners and operators of small business that have been built up over a lifetime to $1 million-plus enterprises. Doesn't mean they have millions of dollars. The owners already paid Uncle Sam millions of dollars of income, property, payroll, energy, business, other taxes, and annual levies. Now that they will have to pay a 40% estate tax rate, plus another 5 to 15% under her plan, depending on what state they die in. In other words, roughly half of a family inheritance. We're not talking about billionaires and millionaires. Must be forked over to the politicians. For the little guy, don't you know? The IRS gets almost as much as the kids and the grandkids. The agent should at least pay the respect at the funeral. Now, how is this fair? Actually, it gets worse. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, I don't want to remind you that Kamala Harris is to the left of her. She's introduced a bill to make the death tax even more onerous. Under her bill, the estate tax would rise to a high of 55 to 65%. The exemption would lower to $3.5 million. This means as much as 2/3 of an estate could be seized by the government, the federal government. This isn't taxation. This is confiscation of family property. You spend a lifetime building up a small business. Maybe it's a corner store, a farm. Do you realize what's going to happen? Is the IRS going to seize grandma's jewelry or grandpa's stable of horses in the mansion he built himself? And it goes on and on. I'm telling you, they're targeting you. So this estate tax will be higher than Russia, higher than communist China, higher than any socialist nation of Europe. There's your Kamala Harris and Dizzy Lizzie Cheney who supports her. Nobody's pouring necessities, food, or other things into the state of Israel. Israel is having to fend for itself. It's a small country with a relatively small economy. And I'm asking you if you could please help. God bless each and every one of you. If you're not voting early, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look in the mirror now, and I'm serious about this. This is your duty as a patriot and a citizen. Right now, please, vote early. Beat them at their game. Save our country. It's not hard to do. I salute all you patriots out there, and I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.